policy development, government engagement programs, operation management. Africa Internet Governance. Please welcome Bob Ochieng.
Good afternoon. That was colder than the previous one. Good afternoon, classmates. So, when I was last in school, must have been very many years ago, I suppose, I was told that everyone in a class or within the walls of the classroom, including the teacher or the professor, is a classmate. And this was my VC sometime back telling us that. So I used to greet the class in that same way as good morning, classmates. So good morning, classmates. So how many are students? One more time. I saw some hands. So it's always a pleasure to speak to students specifically in this industry. And I find it a rewarding exercise and experience, and something that probably in our time we did not have. And I think we've been talking about very difficult things. AI, I don't know if we confirmed what acronym we were actually discussing. You know, it could mean very many things, isn't it? It could be Africa integrated. It could be, I hope we were clear on what AI we were discussing. So I want to very quickly speak about something a little bit different. And hopefully it will be interesting to you. And I don't know how much time I have. It can be as long as you are interested, like the rest of the day, or as short as 10 minutes. So should we do 30 minutes? Or 15? What would you prefer? 15? 30? Okay. So my name is Bob. I always say I come from the internet. That should do it. And today I want to speak to us about internet governance, as the title says. But I'll deviate a bit from that and probably try and understand if we are on the same page on some fundamentals. How many are in the ICT? How many are taking anything ICT related? Students? Okay. Good. So I want to speak about, and I believe we wouldn't be here if this was not the case, about the internet, just very briefly. And probably start by asking, who has not gone online today? Everyone has gone online, isn't it? And if there was no internet, how many of you would be here now? How many? Okay. And if there was no internet, just imagine who do you blame? Who do we think would be responsible for that? I want to build some context so that I arrive somewhere that I hope we shall arrive together. I just want some random thoughts as I conceptualize this topic. So anyone, by the way, there is never the right answer. We will arrive at that answer together. So if you wake up today, there is no internet. We've agreed, all of you have gone to the internet today, isn't it? That's taken. So if you woke up and there was no internet up to now, who do you blame? Or what potentially do you imagine is the problem? Yes, sir. So you're a service provider, in this case, the likes of, do we have examples of service providers that you know? Which is the obvious name that comes to your mind? Service providers? Safaricom, which other? Who? Airtel, okay. So service provider could be the issue, isn't it? How about the service provider was not the issue? What potentially could be the other? Who? The government. That is interesting. I would like to know how and in what way. But he's saying the government could be the issue. What else? You would blame yourself. Why? Oh, so you don't have bundles. Okay, so that can keep you offline. Great. Any other? I've had service providers, I have government, I have had, how do we classify not buying bundles? Economics. Okay. Any other? We only have 30 minutes. Yes. Do we have such a body in mind that we can think about? Who would that be? Okay, probably service providers, isn't it? The infrastructure belongs to them one way or another. Okay, so undersea cable providers and the rest. But someone will say the satellite as well. Okay. 3 more. Then we take the next component of that discussion. Yes. If you woke up today and there is no internet or you can't go online, so the question I'm asking, what do you imagine could be the cause of that or could be the problem why you can't go online? Those who invented. Did we understand that? Okay, so he has a very interesting view there. Any 2 last comments on that? Why are you not online? I mean, service provider, government. There are others you're not telling me. So your device, okay. The last one?
There can be a man-in-the-middle attack.
So
And
is that AI talking? I can't. Where is that? Oh, yes. Oh, it's an actual person. It's not AI. Yes.
there can be a man-in-the-middle attack, and maybe someone is blocking you to access the internet.
So there is already an incident, cyber incident, cybersecurity incident. By the way, cybersecurity is not equal to cybercrime. So a man-in-the-middle attack. I wonder why this person is always a man. Question for another day. So I think those are very good comments and inputs. But it tells you something. It tells you something that we are trying to arrive at with those answers. If I asked you today what your definition of the internet would be, and to save time, I am sure we'll get as many answers as we are in this room. Okay? Now, when I asked if you've gone online today or if you've used the internet today, I think everyone knew what I was talking about. Like, we all understand what we mean by the internet. This thing we call the internet, which is the cause of the rest of the discussions we had. So we understand, or we have an idea of what the internet is, but I'm not sure we have the same definition of the internet. And that is why, if I can't go online, then we would think of very many things potentially as a problem. Is the internet one network? Is it one global network? Who says yes or no? What do you imagine? If you can't go to the internet, is it one particular, network that you are not able to go to, or what does that mean? Is it global? Is it one? Is it, what do you perceive it to be? Yes. It's one network. So, assuming I am on a Safaricom network, okay, and he is on Airtel, can we both go to the internet? But are we on the same networks? But we can go to the internet. So how is it one network in that case? Yes. This is not technical, by the way, very far from it.
Good afternoon. I think it's World Web. The WW means you're in one web, like the web for the spiders. So you're in one place.
Like the spiders, you
Yes.
had that. Okay, so I want to save time here so that I probably underscore what I want us to understand. Most of the time, and remember the topic is internet governance, I'm not sure how many of you have ever heard about that title or topic, internet governance. And someone says that the internet is global, and I think indeed it is global, isn't it? So that if you send an email from here to someone in South Africa, it should just get there. It's global. So how do you govern a global thing? Does it have borders? Does it check border points, go through passports as an email travels? It doesn't, isn't it? So how do you govern a borderless infrastructure? One. The last time I checked, governance or governments have a connotation of some territory, isn't it? So if you are to govern something, then there has to be very defined borders. You must be sure that your territory is from here to here. If you are a CEO of organization, your organization is very clear. It has demarcations. So how do you perceive an infrastructure of this nature can then be governed globally? Is there a Kenyan version of the internet and a Ugandan version and a Europe version? Is there an African version versus a US version? It is one internet, isn't it? So how do we govern a borderless thing? Because governments have borders, or governance connotates some kind of a border. But this is a borderless infrastructure. Okay? Have you ever thought about that? And who has any insights into how that is possible or how that is happening today. Anyone wants to comment? Yes, sir. Right at the back.
I think the internet governance can go to different shareholders in the market and try to approach them differently. They can use some technical oversights like on how to advise them on the borderline. For example, there was that one thing that happened in, I don't know if it's it was a conference in Budapest or something, that they talked about the international governance and how they can mitigate these challenges in different time zones from international policies and laws.
So the reason I started by asking you what could be wrong if you can't go online is to give you a picture of what the internet really is. Because all of your answers were actually right. I think apart from, I didn't understand what you said about pioneers. It is true that because of your service providers, you might be offline. Because of the government, you might be offline. Because of not being able to have the right devices, you could be offline. Because of not affording bundles, you could be offline. So what that means is that for that network that we imagine and know as the internet today to behave the way it behaves, for each and every one of us, you know, the speed that you receive the device, that you receive it through, all of these things must sort of come together and work. Someone did not talk about Kenya Power. Are they stakeholders in this thing? So a number of very many things must work right for your internet to work for you. So when you talk about governance, in as much as governance or government refers to something that has got very definite borders, if you opened up the internet, you will not find one network, you will not find one organization, you will not find one person, you will find hundreds and thousands of different people, each of them are responsible for a very specific part, what you call the span of control. For example, and these slides will be shared with you for those who are interested. I'm trying not to go through them. The government of Kenya can shut down the internet in Kenya. That is correct, isn't it? Probably you could ask the question, but how do they actually do it? How do they make that possible? How do they? Is there a switch somewhere that they go and switch off? Is there a switch? But if they did that, and I went to Uganda, will I find the internet working? So what it means is that the government of Kenya, or the action, or such an action by a government, is only applicable within their borders, isn't it? The rest of the internet remains. Safaricom could shut down their network, isn't it? If I move to Airtel, I will still find the internet. So it is only subscribers in that particular network that then go offline. So in other words, these different players have got a span of control. Their actions are within their authority. So that is the way the internet is governed. There is no single government institution or individual that has the capacity to declare or to do something that takes the global internet offline. Most of the time, or many a times, it has been imagined that there is a superpower country somewhere, that one that we know, isn't it, that has the capacity to do that. In theory, maybe. In practice, it is impossible that one government can do something that takes the global internet offline. Does that make sense? Or who disagrees? Or any question to that thinking? So most of the time when we talk about the internet, I rush to ensure that we are talking about the same thing, that we are talking about the internet that everyone knows is the internet, but has a lot of misconceptions about it. And when we talk about internet governance, it is important to understand that the internet is not one network, it's not controlled or can never be controlled, it's not under the authority of one individual, one institution, one government, or any other stakeholder. And it takes all these players, and there are very many, there are very, very many, each of them doing a very specific role. But remember, what does the internet allow you and me to do? What makes it very powerful? It is only a place where you can search something and find, meaning you can, in that global network, how do you target and arrive at exactly what you want? So if I wanted content from University of Nairobi, for example, what do? I say www.un.something. What is that called? What is it called? A name or a domain name, isn't it? So if you put that on your browser, then you only access UN's website. But why is that the case? I would imagine there are very many potential names that could also be exactly the same. So why is it not that when you say kcb.co.ke, that you only access KCB's website? It doesn't matter where you are or which part of the world you are doing that from. Any thought on how that is made possible? Yes. So the domain name is fixed to a particular IP address. So you have said two fundamental things, domain name and an IP address. We all know what those two things are. IP addresses, we know what they are. So internet protocol. So what actually happens that allows you to address things on the internet very, very specifically, whatever they are, content on the internet is what we call internet unique identifiers. And there are 4 major identifiers. The first one is names, okay? If you have a phone and you have people in your phone book, you have saved them with their names, isn't it? Is that correct? Now, when you are calling someone, whoever it is, you go to your phone and just call the name. That's what we do. But does your phone do the same? Does the phone call the name? What does the phone actually call? It calls the number. But why do you need a name? Yet the phone will only call a number. By the way, if you could actually also just write the number and it will still work. So why do you need a name? For ease of access. Which other one? Because names are easy for me and you to remember. It's easy to remember Bob than 0720 something, something, something. You can remember 10 names, but can you easily remember 10 phone numbers? So the name is only a way to make you easily remember what you actually want. That's why when you go to Facebook, you say facebook.com. But your computer does not look for facebook.com. It looks for the IP address that has the web server for Facebook content. But remember, IP addresses are written in two notations, either v4 or version 6. What is the length of version 6 address? Anyone? I saw some, those ICT students somewhere. What is the length? So that is the potential length of a number that you are supposed to remember if there was no names. So unique identifiers, which are names, numbers, and they need a third thing for them to work together. Who could guess what that is? What makes names and numbers work together? Something very important, otherwise they wouldn't work together. Yes, very good. But before you get to the domain name resolution, you need something for names and numbers to translate back and forth. Even domain name resolution, which is DNS, will need that. Any quick response to that? So you need something called protocols. That's why the ring of IP protocol and different protocols that you've heard about. Now those protocols are done by these people called the IETF, or the Internet Engineering Task Force. So I wanted to highlight the fact that in the realm of internet governance, or the internet itself, first of all, it is important to conceptualize that when you talk about the internet, you are not talking of one network. You're talking of hundreds of thousands of networks that are interlinked or that are connected to each other. Each of those networks could be having their own governance, their own management, their own policies. Local example would be, Safaricom's network will be governed according to Safaricom's policies. The same for Telcom or Airtel and the rest. But those subscribers in those various networks can easily connect with each other because those networks implement what we call protocols and open standards. So they only need to adhere to the same protocols. And the different people in those respective networks will be able to communicate between those networks. So the networks have to be connected themselves first. And how are they connected? Using critical identifiers, which we are saying the most important one is IP addresses. So all I need is to have an IP address. By the way, even your own device, your phone, without an IP address, you cannot go online. No one said this. So everything could be working, but without an IP address on your phone, it cannot get online. And how does it get to your phone, by the way? How did your IP address end up in your phone? Yes.
By the service provider.
So this is the journey of an IP address, very quickly globally. And that is how it ends up in your phone. I can clarify that okay, let me try. Now between, so this cannot point to this screen. My apologies. Yeah, so what I wanted to highlight is you cannot go online without an IP address on your device, whichever device you have now. And sometimes you can quarrel your service provider or KPLC or your bundles, yet the real problem is actually your IP address. But the question is, how does it end up in your phone or whichever device we're using at home? So this is how IP addresses are distributed globally today. This level, or what you see there as IANA functions, is a department in ICANN that distributes IP blocks to what we call regional internet registries. And those internet registries are 5, and they serve equivalents of continents. So you'll see a registry there called Afrinic. Now that is the registry that receives IP address allocation for the entire African continent. It means that any institution in Africa that wants IP addresses, where a network provider or a government, whatever you are, you make an application to Afrinic, which you see there. So you see service providers here. Airtel, this one, Safaricom, and all of them. So you will make your application to your regional internet registry, depending on which region of the world you are located. Then, after you receive the allocation, now the RIRs, the regional internet registries, get the allocation from ICANN or from IANA. So once you have them at your service providers, meaning they have received them from the respective regional internet registries, then it is now with your service provider. Now I wanted to underscore the fact that between your service provider and your device is an automated process. Those of you in ICT call it, which protocol is that? Dynamic something, isn't it? So that allocation between your service provider and your device is automated. That is the part that you don't need to bother about. But between your service provider and Afrinic, and between Afrinic and ICANN, is not automated. It is an application, it has approval processes, it has a lot of governance in it. But that is how your device gets your IP address, and that is very important. That is the most important identifier that you need for you to get online. Otherwise, you can never get online. Now, you can spin that and very quickly engage on the cybersecurity front. And there are 3 comments I wanted to make on this. The first is that the domain name space, so names, numbers, and protocols, is very huge. Each of them have got very diverse communities. We hear about .com a lot, isn't it? How many have .com email addresses? How many have got a Gmail account? I would say probably all of us, okay? Now someone is responsible for .com as a domain name. And it's a huge thing. Now, the regional internet registries have an ecosystem around them as well, which is very established. And they both have different vectors for cybersecurity on how names can be attacked or how numbers can be attacked, and how you prevent or how you work around preventing cybersecurity from a names perspective. You've heard that probably websites have been hacked, so you can't do ecitizen.co.ke. How do you attack a domain name? So the researchers that I heard about, that's an important area. How do you attack IP addresses? Or how do you target IP addresses from a cybersecurity front? A very important area. How about the protocols component of it? A very important area. But the other important thing I wanted to invite you students who potentially tomorrow will also be looking for opportunities out there, is that all these organizations you see here today are as far as you can imagine or as close to you as you being able to access the internet. There's nothing that stops you and me from being part of IETF, ISOC, Internet Architecture Board, Regional Internet Registries. By the way, Afrinic have got staff in Africa, even though they're based in Mauritius. The question to you is, how can you be part of that? How can you be part of ISOC? How could you work for Google, for example? How could you work for Facebook? All these organizations that have a role to play on the internet also have room for you to be part of them. But do we see them in that perspective, or we just consume whatever they provide for us? So one thing I always tell classmates is, apart from understanding what these people do, you should also understand the fact that nothing stops you from isolating them and pursuing them to be part of them. It is very possible. And by the way, because of the same internet, you don't have to live probably where you live. Okay, those are two lives. One is with E and A, the other one is with I. So you don't have to live where you live. Does that make sense? Like, you don't have to migrate, or you can actually work for these people right from where you are. So it is good to know about them, to know that they exist, over and above knowing what they do, so that we are not just consuming, whatever services they are providing. If you walk to Afrinic today, you will find Kenyans there. If you walk to Facebook, you'll find Kenyans there. When we were students back then, we didn't know about that. But we are saying to you now that that is very possible. And they are very close to you, as close as you accessing the internet. So those are the few comments I wanted to make on internet governance. I hope it added value to this discussion. But most importantly, I hope it makes you ask more questions or reach out so that we could zero down on specifics, because it is very wide. Otherwise, with those few remarks, thank you very much, and good afternoon once more.
Two questions. Whoever has a burning question, burning. Yeah, there is one. And the other burning question. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Nicole. My question is, for the companies that you've stated, do they have like entry-level jobs, or do you have to, which type of certifications do you have to do to join those companies, or what are the requirements? And yes.
Okay, hello, I'm Brian. So my question was about governance. How does each individual country, how is each individual country able to regulate the internet access in their country? Is there like a central massive router or something? Yeah.
Great, so I'll start with Brian very quickly. Is there a central router? Is there a central place? It depends on how you define a router. Lawyers will tell you, if you ask them what is 2 plus 2, an engineer will say it's 4, isn't it? But a lawyer will ask you, so what would you want it to be? So what do you define a router as? If it is what can switch off something, then yes, there is. Why? Because every service provider in a country must be given a license. Is that correct? Before you go live, you must get a license from that territory or from the authorities or from that government. Correct? That contract is the router between you and the government. They can withdraw it under terms and conditions, isn't it? And when they withdraw it, you are offline. So that is the router. And any government will always have that with any organization in any sector. So if they say that effective today, all telecoms licenses stand suspended, then you comply with the law. Remember, organizations are corporate citizens, so they comply with the law. So what does compliance mean? Everyone goes to their own switches and does the needful. We've seen that with TVs, isn't it? So yeah, so that is what governments have. That is the router that they have. And the rest of the institutions only need to obey the law. And all of us will be offline. But I am quick to add that that will only be in that particular government. So if Kenya does that, you can always move to across the border and you'll be online, isn't it? Now, to Nicole's question, I think a very important one. I've listed very many organizations there, and those are actually just a few of them. ICANN itself has got lots of opportunities, and I must say that most of these organizations have got two parts. First of all, they have fellowship programs, but they need you to be following their activities. If you talk of the ITU, International Telecommunications Union, talk about ICANN, talk about ISOC, talk about AFRINIC, that is at the very regional level, they always have fellowships. Now, most of the time, it makes sense to give fellowships to someone who is already following, who is interested. You might not be interested in what ITU does or what ICANN does, but probably you are interested in what ISOC does. So when you join, so they also have what are called mailing lists. So if you're part of those, they post these opportunities there, especially fellowships is normally the first time. And they see, those who are consistently interested. And it is most of the time from fellowships that you can then move to the next level. So you talk about entry levels. That is one approach. The other ones are actually simply applying to open positions. We never check. And most of you, when you are looking for jobs or even internships, you only think about the companies in Kenya. Unfortunately, that should not be the case. As far as telecommunications is concerned, or tech organizations are concerned, they actually don't have borders. They don't. You really don't need to leave your place where you live. You can work from there today. You saw that during COVID, isn't it? Even government was working from home. So they don't have borders, and actually they also rarely discriminate. And I think they're very keen on ladies. Someone talked about ladies here. As long as you're qualified. So it is a question of you knowing that they do exist and continuously checking. And you don't have to be in technology. There are accountants at Facebook. There are, finance managers in Facebook. There are project managers there. So it's not just technology. That is a myth. All these careers exist. They are fully functional organizations. So technology is what they do, but not what runs them. So I want to invite you and to urge you to be more than users online, okay? Because you can do it.
Thank you very much, Bob. Let's appreciate Bob. Thank you very much. And as we appreciate Bob, please just stand a little bit. I need to see who is the tallest. Oh, that guy is tall because he's here. Yeah, it is that time that I just wanted to stretch my arms. As we welcome Harrison, Please, Harrison, come on stage. Yeah, the standing is stretching for like another 30